I said no, hey, yeah.
All right. Hi, this is Matt Gressick with another edition of Brick and Mortar Education from the Inside Out. I'm one of your hosts.
As Eric Eversole, along with Matt. And we continue to find really great people who come out of the brick and mortar, the classroom or the school. And we're always happy to have them on. And today we have Lynn Rashid, who
Media specialist to the stars, Lynn Rashid. We're just going to ask you a basic question to explain how wonderful you are and why you chose to go into education.
I ultimately chose education because I started out as an econ major looking at internet, particularly global economies. And the common denominator really in whether or not an economy or a country was successful was the type of access to education that the people had. So it became really clear that the surest way for not just a country, but an individual to feel successful and have their own agency is to have access to a quality education. So I thought I should really jump in on this. And I didn't. I thought I was going to go to law school. But when I started picking those with whether or not they had palm trees in the brochure, my father was pretty clear that that's not how one chooses to go to law school, and he wouldn't be paying for it. So in the end, I got a government and politics degree, but then decided I'll just give this teaching thing a whirl until, I get my real job. And here I am, year 25.
And we're going to hit this later, and I'm sure we will. Lynn's a media specialist, but she is a teacher. Okay, let's just be very clear.
Right,
I've worked in a building with her, and some schools have lots of smarties at their school, and the school we worked at together has a bunch of really cool people, and she's one of them for sure. Okay, so talk to us about education. Always fun. You can choose any one of these. What's your most difficult or challenging moment, or your funniest moment, or even your most rewarding moment in your time in education?
Story time.
What sticks out in your memory?
I don't know if I have a specific moment, but I feel like every day we have these moments. I work with teenagers. I know you guys were secondary also. And every day I marvel at the cool things that we get to do with our job, like really funny interactions with kids. A kid who earnestly is concerned about the expired hand sanitizer that's sitting on my table, or, these kids are really funny at this age. So I think I don't have like a moment in mind, but certainly in the media center, we see a very interesting cast of characters, very interesting. And I know
I generally say that I worry about our future less when I hang out in a high school as opposed to read the news, because there are lots of really, really, conscientious and intelligent kids.
And, the media center, we see the kids who really don't fit in the cafeteria and that don't fit, before school or after school. And,
Breakfast club group, if you will.
What's that?
The breakfast club group, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. And, at first I was like, I envisioned these kids as others. And then it occurred to me that I really think it says something more about me than it does about them, because I've chosen this as a job. They come here just, like part of the time. I'm the person who decided I wanted to be in the library all day, every day. So I don't see those kids as others anymore. I'm like, I feel you. I think we're on the same page.
All right, awesome. So as that going with that media center specialty, let's talk about specifically being a media specialist, being a librarian. What are the challenges there? And what are you hearing as the new challenges arising today?
Our primary challenge right now is we're one-to-one in terms of devices, and that is an unbelievable amount of maintenance and support.
Yeah, you're expected to be a tech wizard as well as well-read and literary, right?
Well, I would say wizards. The wizardry that we would do would be more in the classroom in terms of teacher tech support, but unfortunately, the Chromebook device support is not wizardry at all. It's very mundane, very basic, but time consuming. So, as Eric mentioned before, most of us are trained teachers. We came out of the classroom. I was in social studies before I went to media. And, there's
another social studies teacher, Matt.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How do we keep finding them?
Know.
Well,
It's
there's
like
just
you like social studies teachers or something.
I do. I can't help it.
well, we are the most fun. We have the best in services. I mean, they are the most laid back. I mean,
All right,
there's
I'll
just
count
a lot
myself
of
as an outlier.
there's a lot of payroll on the table when you're talking about staff in the county. And a lot of our time now is spent triaging Chromebooks,
Yeah.
which is just really not where we're most effective. I mean, as a taxpayer, I would want me in front of 100 or more kids every day, making it easier for the classroom teacher and infusing some common sense research and technology skills into the classroom. If it were wizardry, it would feel better, but it's not. It's
well, not to you, but when somebody sees you do it, it does. You pay no attention to that media specialist behind the curtain.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It seems look, she got it working again. It's amazing.
Well, and the triage, like the stories I hear from our media specialists at our school are just crazy. And you probably have them too, where like they open up some of these devices and like they find like an ant farm there because they spilled like syrup on it or something like that, and then they're like, I wonder why this doesn't work.
Those are some of my funniest moments now, are the Chromebook stories. And I feel like the priest at my church who, was in, training the first confession kids, where just the sin, not the story. I'm like, I don't want to hear what happened to your Chromebook, but it is really some of the best stories. I mean, one kid was like, it fell out of my trunk. And then I went to retrieve it on the highway and I watched a car drive over it. And he brought me the pieces from the highway. And I was like, this was completely unnecessary. We could have just
Nice.
marked this lost.
Nice.
So yes, some of the Chromebook stories are probably some of the funnier moments in the day.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, I think I hear it.
Man.
I love it that people feel like they want to call in. Let's pick it up and see who it is, shall we? Hey, hello, caller. How are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Well, tell us who you are, and then we'll take your question.
My name is Katie Malone.
Hey, Matt. It's another familiar name.
I know, Malone, Magician Malone.
It's
wizardry.
It's a string of unusual. I don't know what to say anymore. I don't really know, but my gosh. Well, Katie, thank you for calling in. We have Lynn Rashid, who is here. She is a media specialist, and I'm sure you've been paying attention. Do you have a question for her?
I do. One of the things I keep hearing about are book bans. What impact are you feeling here in Maryland? And more generally, what are your feelings about the impact of education and our children removing certain books from media centers?
Great question.
Well, as ever, we have these people who are like paying attention to what's going on and ask these very hard-hitting and insightful questions. Thank you, Katie. We appreciate the question. Lynn, you want to weigh in on that?
So obviously as a media specialist, our goal is to protect. I tell the kids this when we do banned books projects, our goal as librarians is to, safeguard all the ideas, even the ones we don't agree with. School selection policies are different, of course, from public school or public library selection policies. Ours are a little bit more obviously targeted to age group and content area. My greatest fear with this process is that, and I don't feel this in Howard County because I do feel very protected by our selection policies. They did just tighten up who can challenge a book in a collection now. Awesome. They've done a very Supreme Court type thing in which you actually have to have standing in order to do that, meaning that your child needs to be in the school in which that book is actually on the shelf, that these challenges can't come from outside groups. So I think there was some forward thinking last year in terms of changing that policy after that trifecta of LGBTQ books was challenged. My primary fear is the silent selection or the silent censorship that will be happening in libraries, in which media specialists and teachers are going to silently just choose not to carry certain books because they don't want the headache.
Less trouble. Yeah.
And that I think is a greater concern in Howard County and nationwide, is that people are just going to start shying away from these topics and these books, and that our collections aren't going to be censored out in the open, because these are the things we can see. You know, obviously when you bring these things out to light, we can see the books that they're removing from the shelves, but what you will never know is the book I just choose not to add.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
And that's my concern about these policies, is that you've got people who are going to be unwilling to bring these topics into the library, and you'll never know about it because they're not being challenged, they're not being banned, they're just never showing up in the first place.
And these books will still exist, and I think where better, what safer atmosphere, what more, you know, in intellectual atmosphere to approach books like that than a school.
Oh, I mean, the safest place you can encounter these things is on the printed page. And I think, you know, we're seeing these challenges for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that, you know, books are tangible, you can see them. And you can actually physically remove them. But I mean, as we know as educators, I mean, it's very difficult for us to indoctrinate these children. I mean, we really have a hard time overcoming some of the habits and perceptions and mindsets that they bring from home. I mean, one would argue if we had any success with that, we'd have a completely different society on our hands. But yeah. I think, you know, there's this fear that the printed page, when really what you need to focus on is, you know, the online content that the kids are engaging with, but that's much more difficult to put your finger on, you know, the TikTok videos and the software algorithms that essentially create an echo chamber for you or your kid, which is going to have, in many cases, much more of a dangerous indoctrination potential than, you know, encountering a book.
Beautifully said.
I don't know what to add to that. My God, Lynn,
Wow.
the subtle censorship is something I hadn't thought of before. That's significant for sure.
Oh, I read book reviews with a totally different eye now. I mean, when one of those trifecta books went missing on my shelf and I couldn't find it, like I couldn't find it in the collection and it wasn't checked out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get an email about this. I know it.
Well, it's that fear of, and it's part of that fascist movement that we have in this country, that far right, that it's just, you know, and you just said it so beautifully, that it permeates a lot of decisions that we're not even aware that we're making.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that said, Matt, I think we're up to
you want to go to mascot right away, or you want to do
no, we should ask her. I think this is you get this one, don't you?
Okay, yeah, I'll ask the misconception. What is the biggest misconception people have about what a media specialist does and what their roles are and stuff like that?
We hit a little bit of that already with the Chromebooks, but you can expand if you want.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what you said, you know, at the beginning of the show, where, you know, I don't think most people realize that most of us are classroom teachers, that we you know, we didn't just land here in the media center, you know, outside of the field. Most of us are we're classroom teachers first. And that's really, you know, where we see ourselves, is as support for teachers and students in the classroom. So I think, you know, there's a perception that we're just twiddling our thumbs in between Chromebook support and checking out books. And I'm not going to say that there isn't some of that. I mean, this job is very much what you make it, but you have to hustle. I mean, if you're going to get into a high school teacher's classroom, they are very solitary by nature. I mean, you have to prove yourself that you have some sort of added value in their classroom. And that's a challenging thing to do. And, you know, there are a lot of us out there hustling to do that, but unfortunately, you know, like, you know, any other profession, you know, I mean, in a lot of cases, you know, the person that gets seen the most are the ones who are doing the least, if that makes sense, you know, and you wind up getting judged by the lowest performer in the group. So most of us are teachers, and that's where we prefer to be. We prefer to be teaching and supporting kids and working to support staff as well. So yeah. I think that's a common misconception.
And I think you said, you know, it's what you make it. You reap what you sow. The better you are at it, the more people ask you to do stuff. But actually, that's what you want to do, is be invited into more classes and be part of more classes. I never had you in my math class, and now I think maybe you'd have been
I don't collaborate with math very much, I have to say. I mean, it was the reason.
we're probably the worst case of like, this is my territory, you know?
Well, I mean, also it's my own. I mean, there was a reason I didn't graduate with that econ degree and graduated with the government and politics one.
Don't
instead.
tell me you're bad at math. I don't
I'm
wanna
not
hear it.
bad at it, but I wasn't willing to work hard enough at it. That's
Well, you know, or work hard enough, or maybe it just didn't interest you. I mean, I say to people who say they're bad at math, I say, you're not bad at math. You just didn't find it exciting. And so you didn't really want to get into it. You found something else like social studies that interests you, which is the chain around my neck is that people assume because I'm in government that I must have been a social studies teacher. So they're always surprised. And then I tell my math teacher and they say, oh, so you're smart. I'm like, oh, shut up.
We get a bad rap about that because of you guys. Like they see us, they're like, oh, you're social studies. You must want to go into politics one day. Like, actually, not at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, thanks. Look, okay, so here we go. Fun question at the end. And this is it. A school you've worked at, a school you went to, doesn't matter. All schools have mascots. And so if you could be the headmaster of that school and you could say, look, we're going to change the mascot. Is there a mascot that you would have said, we're going to throw this one out, we're going to change it or alter it?
I mean, this one's pretty ridiculous because, you know, it's really centered on what I see around the building. I've started working the late table this year. Really, we should have been like the Dunkin' to-go cups. I mean, we are like the number.
You're talking about your high school.
Yes, the number of students that walk in with their 32-ounce mixed iced coffee on just at the late table without any regard at all about the fact that they're showing up with the beverage they clearly needed to stop off to get, and then are outraged when they can't take it upstairs. Like, what do you mean? Like.
So the Marriott Ridge Dunkins.
And it's not just the students, you know, I mean, the staff, we needed to get by too. So a lot of the staff are walking around first period with their own Dunkin'. They're showing up on time. But the Dunkin' to go cup for that first period hour, I mean, it is.
Well, and if we could indoctrinate kids, wouldn't it be great if they would bring us a Dunkin' to go cup too? I mean, if we really had that power.
Instead of an apple.
That's what's hysterical to me is they think we do have this power, and I'm like, if we had this power, we wouldn't use it to like indoctrinate them politically. We'd use it for our own benefit.
Exactly.
We'd be like, yeah, we'd be like, we would never need DoorDash again if we were successful at this. Yeah.
There you go. Nice one. Good answer. And if you recognize Lynn's voice, it's because she was one of the voices on our back to school night. There, we may tap her again. We got another one coming. But Lynn, thank you. My God. Really answers that I wasn't expecting and that have really made me think today. So we appreciate you coming on. Sure. I miss teaching alongside you. There's no question about it.
And I know Lynn from National Board Certification, who's doing like we just had just a face-to-face talk a little bit ago, and it was great. And astounding work you're doing with Marriott's Ridge, and keep up. I know you're making a difference in kids' lives, and thank you.
Thank you.
So tune in a couple of weeks, and we'll have another guest. And the bar keeps getting raised higher and higher. So thanks a lot. This is Brick and Mortar from the Inside Out. And thank you all very much for listening.
Take care.
Seen the bride